Every time I experience this watch, I just can't help but think, man, this should have been a turtle. Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. I'm here today with the Seiko SRPC07, better known as the Orange Samurai. And I'm not a big samurai fan, absolutely a turtle guy. So when you hear me say should have been a turtle, that's just me being a little bit jealous and sour grapes at the fact that a beautiful flat orange dial got used in these watches and not the turtle, but never mind that. I think that they've gotten a lot of elements right on this watch. I don't love the overall design language, but of all the kind of pre-ceramic versions, this variant is absolutely my favorite, being a sucker for an orange dial dive watch in general. The sizing on these is chunky, but completely wearable. You have a 43.8 millimeter case. Your thickness is right around 13.3. Your effective lug to lug, so in at these drilled lug holes where you're going to feel it with a strap, is going to be 48.5. And the effective on these bracelet versions is actually bumped out to 54 millimeters. The center of that end link juts out quite a bit. So for the smaller wristed, I'd just keep that in mind. You have a 7 millimeter crown with fantastic knurling. We'll get up a little bit closer later and have a look at some of that grip. And then you have a 22 millimeter lug width. Your bracelet is going to taper down to 20 millimeters. Then it's going to jump back up to 21.5 for your fold over 2-button deployant clasp. Just pressed metal, kind of what you expect from Seiko at the $500 retail mark, which is a little bit unfortunate. So on the fold over side of the bracelet, you will have a small diver's extension. Just pressed metal and not really the easiest to operate, but Seiko always makes an effort to try to put these in on their dive watches. All things considered, I don't think anyone's really taking a watch on bracelet on a dive with them, but it's never really, I guess, a bad thing to have. The case back is really business as usual. You have the Seiko Tsunami in the center, and then basic specifications around the outer edge. Air Divers 200 letting you know it is an ISO certified dive watch. You're all stainless steel with the Japanese movement, and that's referenced here with the 4R35. That's an in-house automatic hacking and hand winding movement. The accuracy tolerances are going to come out of the box at plus 45 to minus 35 seconds a day. Although in general, I understand that's a pretty wide range. Most Seiko dive watches that I've handled and taken the time to put on a time grapher run a lot closer to plus or minus 10 seconds a day, with this particular watch running at about minus 8. The things I like about the watch really start with the dial. As I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of orange Seiko dive watches. I have a second generation orange Monster, the 309. I've had the orange Knight, obviously handled this one, and every time I get one in hand, I'm just blown away. The legibility, the playfulness of it, I just think it's really sharp and not something that they necessarily accomplish when they do a sunburst orange. The Nemo turtle, it was not my favorite, and especially in person it felt kind of awkward visually. Additionally, when they did the sunburst dial of the Monster, it was a sharp watch. It was just lacking a little bit. That flat orange really kind of gobbles up the light and just pops back almost fluorescent to you. And I think especially with the black hands, just has an aesthetic that can't really be matched. I would have liked them to do something a little bit nicer with the date wheel. It feels just a little bit plain. Maybe enclose it with the indice here and wrap that black outline all the way around it like Citizen tends to do with their watches. But all things considered, it's a really nice dial layout. I really do like the indices, and for the most part, this particular watch is pretty well aligned. Being a Seiko diver, the application of Lumabrite is phenomenal. Right on par with like Turtles, better than an SKX. Not quite on the level of like a Tuna or a Marine Master, but plenty of legibility. The hands glow incredibly bright, the indices, and then you have the pip at 12 o'clock. One of my favorite things about these flat orange Seiko dials is how they appear in low light situations. I'm not referring to the luminescence or anything. In the evening hours, as you're walking around outside, when you look down at the watch, sometimes the dial feels like it's just popping extra, like it's glowing at you. And I don't know if maybe the lack of sunlight reflecting off of the stainless steel and the bezel insert is the reason for that, but it's just something I've always really enjoyed. And it's not really about legibility, it's more about visual interest and really drawing your eye in, and it'll make you end up checking your watch 2 or 3 more times than you typically would because the glow, it's just so vibrant. Another couple of things that I think that were done incredibly well with this watch are the crown and the bezel. The insert itself, the whole orange slice design, take it or leave it. I'm not offended by it. I think it looks good, but it's certainly not a key feature, but the gripping or knurling on this crown certainly is. It's very big and robust at 7 millimeters, incredibly easy to grip. I'm happy that they didn't go kind of overboard with the crown guards, so they leave it really exposed, yet protected enough that I don't think anyone wearing the watch is getting the feeling that this is going to be snapping off anytime soon. They carry that same kind of pattern into the side of the bezel, which is incredibly easy to grip as long as you're going kind of north and south. Here on the sides of the case, it sits a little bit flush, so it can be hard to get too good of a grip on. But at the same time, one of the better executed in the Seiko lineup, and a gripping that I really wish they had transitioned over and used on the Turtles. The things I really don't care for on the watch start with the case design. I'm not a fan of the overall shape. That said, I'm kind of a cushion case guy, so it absolutely makes sense that this wouldn't really float my boat. But I just don't understand the design language entirely. The polished section seems a bit forced. And it makes it seem almost like the lugs are applied, and I don't think in a good way. I'm also not a huge fan of the end link here. You have shallow grooves cut in to kind of carry the pattern that runs through the bracelet, but it just doesn't quite line up like I would like to. If you're going to do sharp angles and so many connecting lines, you really want them to be kind of spot on. And with how well executed this solid end link is, I would just expect a little bit better fit. And for me, overall, it kind of throws the watch off visually. Here we are on my 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch wrist. And as you can tell, the watch is chunky, but it in no way overpowers my wrist. Keep in mind, again, those center links jutting out do increase the footprint quite a bit. So if you have a small wrist, I'd absolutely go with a strap, which is a little bit unfortunate because the bracelet in general is pretty well executed, from the solid end links to the nice polishing they do on the underside of each mid link. I think it's got a nice detail, and overall it's pretty attractive outside of the clasp. One thing that the Samurai and the Turtle do exceptionally well, and I think a big improvement for me at least over the SKX, is that their sizing really helps to disperse the weight of the watch a lot more evenly. SKXs for me are a little bit wobbly and feel top heavy, whereas this Samurai feels incredibly planted on wrist. So pricing. Retail, the Samurai runs about $525. And like with most Seikos, and especially their divers, I'm going to always suggest that you look outside of paying a retail price. That's a little bit steep, especially as popularity grows for AliExpress and you see all these Seiko-driven automatic dive watches with sapphires and ceramic for the $100 to $200. I think companies, especially kind of brick and mortar watch shops, are going to have to adjust their pricing to make sure that they stay competitive and keep moving their products. If you look around gray market, these pop up in that kind of $300 to $350 range. And if you're willing to go used, on eBay, it's weird. Like, there's a pretty big gap in what these sell for, or a pretty big range rather. I see variants where just the bezel insert's been replaced, or it's got a few scratches. I've seen them go as low as like $190, $200. I've also seen really nice examples with full bracelet and box and papers run in like the $275 to $290 range. So just figure out what's best for you and keep an eye out. You'll see good deals pop up on these pretty regularly. If you want to buy this exact well-aligned version, reach out to David at Jewelry Works in Gainesville, Florida. He lends a lot of watches into the channel, and his contact details are below. Just let him know you found out about him through Hammond Watch. I'm not claiming a commission. I just want to make sure that he's being supported for helping to support the watch industry and watch nerds like us. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's content. Also consider subscribing. I'm putting out watch content weekly at a minimum, and I hope to see you in the next one.